Hey everybody, it's Justine the Twilight Stamper. Today we're going to be creating a really cool steampunk card featuring So Suzy Stamps. So I'm taking my stamp blending tool thingy and attaching a piece of felt. I'm going to be using alcohol inks today, and I have all of the alcohol inks in the description below that I used, and you'll be able to check them out there instead of me telling you all the names and trying to remember them. So I'm just doing multiple dots across the felt in various colors. I'm trying to use more deep colors. I wanted to go masculine. I ended up adding some purple, but overall really dark blues and dark reds. This is one of my favorite techniques used on glossy paper. You just dab down your stamp or your blending tool, and then you can start doing kind of a twist of your wrist to be getting a different look. You're never going to get the same look twice, which I think is really cool. I have this second piece of glossy paper on the side just to wipe off any excess, and I could use it later for another card. You just keep going back in with the colors, adding more and more each time, and this time I'm adding a little bit of the alcohol in there, and you'll see that it gives it a really cool effect because the alcohol ink resists that alcohol blending liquid. Yeah, so I'm a super huge fan of this look. You can go over it as many times as you want. I'm applying a bit of that blending alcohol right to the glossy paper, and you can see how that ink just repels it. I'm going to go back in once again with a few colors just to get rid of a few of those blotches that I created. I'm going to use a little bit of silver this time as well. And because I'm using a flash on my camera today, you'll notice that you're going to get a bit of a glare throughout the video. I apologize. When you actually have it in normal light, and you'll see it in the photograph, it's not as flashy looking. I also recommend doing this project on a craft mat because that, you can see on my wood, will never come out. It's not my tabletop, don't worry about it, it's just a piece of wood that I can throw away, but still. Alright, so you can see the effect and the shine that it will give off when held in direct light. And unfortunately, as I said, because of the flash, it's not exactly the best reflection in the camera, but it looks really cool when you hold it not towards the light. I'm going to be taking this Chatter stamp from So Suzy Stamps. It's a really cool background stamp, and it's perfect for the vintage sort of steampunk look, and I'm going to use this as my background stamp. So I'm going to ink this up using Archival ink by Ranger. I'm using black ink for this, and there are several reasons why I'm using it. It shows up really well on the glossy paper and dries faster than trying to use dye ink. And it worked really well for that. I didn't even have to hit it with a heat tool, actually. It dried on its own. I'm just going to trim the card down a little bit here so that it fits my background a little bit better. So I'm going to get a bit of an odder shaped card in the end, but not a big deal. Alright, so when I finished doing that, I took my Tombow Mono glue and I attached this onto a black card base. I would actually recommend I went back in and put a little more alcohol ink color. If you do go back in and want to go back in to add more to that background, to not attach it to the card base right away, I got some silver on the black cardstock. Overall, in the end, I liked the way that it turned out, but it could have turned out the other way around where I didn't like it. I'm just going to set it sort of off to the side so you can see how pretty that is without it being just a ginormous glare on the camera. I'm going to add some more color to this. I put in a little bit of yellow this time, as well as the previous colors that I had added before. And we're going to go over this once again. Don't worry about your stamp getting a little bit muddled in there. I ended up fixing that in the end by stamping more onto the background. I was just really having fun playing and experimenting with alcohol inks, and I totally recommend that you do this too. You could do really awesome things on metals and on glossy paper. It's so much fun to work with. Alright, so the next step I don't recommend if you don't want your stencil to get stained. I grabbed this Clockwork Stencil from Holtz, and I decided to go along my background with the clock. So you can see that clock in there, and I didn't like how it was so cut off from the rest, so I added a little bit more color along the side. This is a hot air balloon stamp from So Suzy Stamps, another really cool vintage looking hot air balloon that I got this month as a part of the design team, and I just love it. So I decided to stamp that also onto the background. At this point, my background stamp that I had originally used is quite faded. You can still see it, but I wanted to bring a little bit more something that would attract the eye in the background, and so I decided to stamp that over top. I love the way that it turned out. The next step, I took this stamp from Holtz, And again, I have all the supplies in the description below, as well as on my blog with direct links of where you can find all these supplies online. And I decided to ink it up using Simon Says Stamp white pigment ink. Now, stamping in white pigment on a black background is not going to get you a beautiful white look. It's going to give you something that shows up on the black. But if I wanted a perfectly white look, I would have done it in white embossing powder, but that's not what I was going for. Again, I'm going through for a more vintage look, a more old appearance, and I really thought that the white pigment ink would do it justice. Again, this was an experiment that turned out quite well, and I needed a sentiment that fit with the hot air balloon and the vintage theme, and I went over to my Tim Holtz sentiments to see what I had there. And overall, I was really satisfied with the way that this came out. So you'll see that it dries, it looks quite white, but when it dries, as you'll see here, it is actually quite a bit more faded. I trimmed this out and I attached it to my card, just slightly off to the side using some 3D foam tape, and so that it stuck up just a little bit off of the card. I just love the way that this card turned out, and I think it looks fabulous. I just wanted to show you against the glare here what it looks like. If you're interested in subscribing to my channel to see more videos or seeing some more videos from So Suzy Stamps, I have 2 links here that you can go to. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.